Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and welcome to episode 8 of the Crochet Studio Sessions. And today we're going to talk all about Edinburgh and my little woolly adventure to Edinburgh that I had, not the weekend just gone, the one before. So let's give you a bit of background. Every year for the last 4 years, I've met up with a couple of other crochet designers, and the first year we just had a little designer weekend because it's so useful to spend time just chatting with other people who work and do the same job as you, because it's niche, should we say. So I think the first year we did like a couple of nights in the Cotswolds, and then we started visiting yarn shows together, so you both get the yarn show experience and also the designer inspiration, venting, discussion about the state of the industry, all that sort of stuff that's quite hard to have talked about with other people. Also time to just craft as well. So I meet up with Rosina from Zines and Roger, who you might know. She's got a podcast and does a lot on Instagram, and also Faye H Design. So Faye used to run the Crochet Circle podcast, and she designs for a lot of magazines and has a lot of self-published design. She's got her own YouTube podcast too. So they're who I meet. We've done Unravel a couple of times. Last year I went to Wonderful Wales with Rosina as well, and Faye was actually working with on the John Arbon stand at Wonderful. So last year we went Wales, and this year we were like, should we go a bit further afield? Should we go to Edinburgh? And Faye's Scottish as well, so she was right up there, and Rosina has family that live in Scotland, so she figured she could double up a visit with them. So we got it booked, and it was primarily for Woolly Good Gathering, 17th to 18th of April 2026. So that was a Friday and Saturday. I went up on the Thursday, and for your TLDR we had an absolute cracking time. So I have put together basically a sort of video tour of all of the things we looked at, and does it sound 90s if I say video diary? Anyway, I've put a video diary together, and I'm going to try something new. It's about 8 or 9 minutes, and I'm going to try to narrate it with my little face in the corner. We'll see how this works, because I've not done this level of tech before. But essentially, we got there on the Thursday, did a bit of a yarn tour. The show was Friday and Saturday. Just to give you an overview, I also have, and I'm going to pop a little Google Maps snippet up now, which shows you the different places we visited, because we did get to see quite a lot of more suburby areas of Edinburgh. So here's the map. I might put it up twice because I've mentioned it twice. These are the places that we got to visit. So just to bear in mind, you may be familiar with Edinburgh, you may not be. But I will talk you through all of that when we go. But just thought I'd put that up first. It's also got the point that said the Academy. That is where the yarn show was held. So without further ado, let's look at the journey. So I flew up there from Stansted. There's my little Ryanair flight. I haven't flown from Stansted for a while. Somehow managed to get right in the front of the queue for the plane. Disastrous traveller, left my watch in security. Nightmare. But I got there. First thing I see is an iron brew machine. Obviously a very Scottish drink. Edinburgh Airport was lovely, really small and easy. And I got the tram into the city centre. I like to watch my progress on Google Maps. And here is Princess Street and the castle. So super easy getting the tram into town. And then I went to meet Faye in a little cafe. She got the train through. And this was a lovely little cafe called the Fruit Market. There she is, getting excited. Rosina joined us an hour later. We had lunch and then went for a wander. Lots of stairs, lots of sights, to the first yarn shop. So this was across a lovely green, and Be Inspired Fibres. This was the first yarn shop that we went to, and it was crazy in a good way. It was stacked floor to ceiling in bags. Was not the aesthetic Instagram typical place, but the lady who ran it had basically a Rolodex in her brain. She knew all the fibres. There's me attracted to pink. And I'm going to pause. Okay, I had to pause the video there because I totally ran out of time to say the things I say. Say the things I meant to say, but Be Inspired Fibres was an absolute cracking shop. It was not your typical Instagram, you know, all the amazing aesthetics, but there was so many different fibres there. There was so many brands I hadn't come across. I'm going to do a separate video with my yarn haul and what I did buy, but there is a bit in this video where you'll see some of the yarn brands that I discovered throughout all the shops. There was a lot. I loved this shop. It had really good energy. All of Edinburgh had really good energy. This felt like it was in a sort of studenty area. I don't really know the areas of Edinburgh, but it was kind of a nice day, not boiling, windy. Edinburgh's pretty windy, but we walked up there. Just good vibes, chill, so chill. This was a Thursday afternoon, so it wasn't a particularly busy time. It felt, like I say, it felt like a studenty area. But yeah, absolutely loved Be Inspired, just really unusual. And seriously, the knowledge of the lady, and I didn't get her name, but the knowledge of the lady that owned that shop, just from talking to us, from talking to other people that were coming and going, she's got some yarn knowledge. So loved that shop. 5 out of 5 for character, personality, and really interesting yarn blends. One of the things I love about yarn shows in general is finding new things and new blends. So yeah, that was Be Inspired. That was number 1. I've got my little notebook, and just before I move on, I'm going to read you my notes that I made, because I have to make notes so I remember these things. These are some of the yarn brands, and I can't actually read my own writing. So Be Inspired, I've written Lotus, which was a brand, Sanders Garn, which I think is to do with petite knits. It's one of her brands. Rosa Palmer. There was one called Retro Rosaria Vovo, and Cama Rose, and Cumulus, and Alva Filcolana, and can't read that one, but I know there's a picture of it. That just gives you an idea of all these brands that were totally new to me. The Cumulus was a Fibre Space one, I think. But yeah, the others were all basically new yarn brands to me. So that was Be Inspired. Let's move on to the next one, which was called the Fibre Yard. A gorgeous yarn shop. I think it's less than a year old, but again, there's us looking cheesy outside it. Lots of new yarns. I mean, look, it was much more curated, but it was so beautifully presented. Just loads going on, but not overwhelming. The lady that ran it, that was there, again, really knowledgeable about everything. This fluff I was addicted to. This is Chaos Yarns. You'll see more of that. Oh, pause again. So not going how I planned. I've got too much to say. So the Fibre Yard, absolutely loved that shop. Just beautifully presented, beautiful yarns, just some really fun colours. That was the thing that really stood out, especially that Chaos yarn that was right at the end. So the one I showed you was fluff, but they do have non-fluff. And the colours in that yarn brand, right up my street. Really warm, friendly. They had a sofa that you could sit. They had, one thing I loved, they had a daylight lamp in there so you could actually see what colour the yarn was, especially if you're shopping and it's maybe night or dark. Sometimes in shops, you might find this with clothes shopping as well. You're like, I can't actually see whether that's black or navy, or, you know, it can be really hard to see colours in artificial lights like that. So loved that little attention to detail. Lots of swatches, enthusiastic about crochet. Yeah, absolutely loved that. So next off, that's 2 done, and then we went to check into our apartment that we were staying at. So I'll give you a very quick tour of that. So our apartment was literally a stone's throw off the Royal Mile. It was first floor above this cafe, quite an old building. It was fine for what we needed, a bit rough around the edges, but amazing location. This was our bedroom. There's me saying hello. And then this looked right out on the Royal Mile. So just to the right here, literally that is the Royal Mile, which is right in the centre of Edinburgh. Right next door, there was a wool clothes shop that had Zakami yarns. So much yarn everywhere in Edinburgh. It was just glorious. So once we calmed, we walked over to the next yarn shop, which was Ginger Twist Studio. Saw some cracking names of shops on the way down. Love a pun. Ginger Twist Studio, here we are. We're having a kind of late night opening because of the festival that was happening. They had drinks, they'd organised a knit night. So that was great. This little rainbow of sweaters just was glorious. Literally the yarn was stacked floor to ceiling, again more curated than Be Inspired. Loads of interesting fibres, loads of colour. This gorgeous rainbow, this I believe was a Massam blend, which is type of sheep wool, which I loved, but some chap got his bag caught in it, so dangerous. Then we went and got food. This was an old public toilet apparently, and I made everyone walk the long way home. So here are some of the yarns that I came across. I didn't take the label of that one, but I was obsessed. These are some of the other ones in Be Inspired and some of the other shops. That's one I couldn't pronounce earlier. There's some more of the chaos. Just look at those colours. Yeah, loads of discoveries of new fibres, which I loved so much. And I had to take a picture of the troll. So that was day 1. This is morning of day 2, Friday morning. We had a bit of a chill start, bit crocheting with pastries and coffee from the cafe downstairs. And then we went to the 4th yarn shop, which was Kathy's Knits. Here we are. Much more traditional, old school yarn shop. This was on the way to the show, so we didn't spend that long there, but they had some really nice stuff, lots of local fibre blends as well. Loved that Anfield farm that was made just across the way in Scotland. And here we are at the show. This was held in the Edinburgh Academy, which is a fancy school, or certainly fancy school environment. Lots of amazing old buildings. It was spread out over a lot of space. This area was like a big seating area, so you could sit and rest and eat. Loads of good seating and stuff at the festival. There's live music there as well, and loads of talks. This is Faye with her brand new design in the Journal of Scottish Yarns. I need to pause for this one because... So what you just saw there was us sitting in a talk. So there was loads of talks at the show throughout the 2 days. And this one was a history of crochet in 100 objects. And it was a lady called Eleanor Gilchrist. And she is doing a PhD into the history of crochet, which I love because there's so many mixed theories and half explanations as to where crochet came from, when it was popularised, when patterns were first created. And what she's doing in this talk and for her PhD is looking at old objects and dating when crochet first appeared as a kind of yarn craft. Like knitting predates it, but you also have very old things like knurl binding, which is, a kind of, I think, Viking craft. So she went from when it kind of first appeared in places to like the first time patterns were written down. It sort of started around, I think, the 1820s. But really, really interesting, unusual talk, and I loved it. And I'm so glad that that people are out there dedicating this kind of real scientific research into where things actually came from and how it's spread. So I love this talk. I loved that the show in general had a really good, it was really strong on crochet. Like a lot of these shows are very knitting centric, which is fine, but it can feel a little bit exclusionary. They think, oh, well, crocheters don't like fancy yarns. Well, That's not true. I love a fancy yarn and I don't really knit. You just use them in a slightly different way. There's a lot of myths about crochet, so having someone look into it in this way was great. And it was such a good talk. It was engaging. The room was packed. Loads of people, you know, genuinely interested. Everyone chatting to each other. I also looked back at one point and More It magazine, which is a kind of higher end crochet magazine, they had a stand there because the lady that, you know, one of the ladies, Alison, who's part of the organisation of this festival, also runs More It magazine. So, but I just looked back over my shoulder and I saw 2 or 3 people just flicking through and I was like, yay. It just was really joyful in that way. So I wanted to share, just to take a moment to really wax lyrical. And everyone I spoke to who went to this talk was like, oh my God, it was brilliant. Hopefully one day this lady will turn this into a book. So let her get a thesis written first. So that's that pause. So let's jump back in. So after the talk, we basically mooched around the festival until they kicked us out. This is the More It stand I mentioned. And there is some of the issues. I'm in issue 2. Have a squish. This is, I mean, it's what it's about. These are some of the other yarns that I just squished and loved. Lots of blues, which was interesting. This, oh my God, this Fibres Rose. I'll tell you more about that in my yarn haul because I bought some. This is Di Gilpin's store, who I think was on Game of Wool. I did not watch that show, so I don't know, but I blooming love this yarn. Then we went for a walk around Edinburgh. So we went for the tourist thing, went up to the castle. This is us walking up the Royal Mile. Check out the bagpiper on the left. There we go, very Scottish. He was about 12. So we got up to the castle just as the sun was setting and it was absolutely glorious. Windy, silly, fun. Love the touristy bit. It blew my mind how low that wall was. It was making me anxious, but what a beautiful city, just a view. Then we went for a wander. This is, I think, something market, green, I forget. Food mentioned highly, and iron brew. That's a pincer, which was amazing. And then we were exhausted. Oh, this was a little craft market we went to, and I wanted to say, hang on. Seriously, I am pausing way more than I thought I would. I thought when I was putting this video together, I'll just narrate as we go, I'll have plenty of time, but apparently not. But I wanted to say, and what these kind of pictures show is how much inspiration there was everywhere in Edinburgh. There was so many shops selling woolen goods, so Scottish cashmere, tweed, tartan, so much woven stuff. There's like Fair Isle, just amazing colours, combinations, patterns, lots of houndstooth. It was everywhere, and there were so many clothes shops, like wool shops. You got the Royal Mile, and the touristy bit is full of these sort of Scottish wool type shops. And a lot of it is locally made. There's a lot of sheep in Scotland and surrounding areas, so a lot of it is locally raised and spun. And it was just such an inspiring city in that way. And that's why I've included these pictures, because it wasn't just about the yarn shops and the yarn shows, it was the city as a whole. So I needed to like pause. Some of these pictures are from where we just stumbled on the way home from the show on the first day, which we were at till they kicked us out, in a nice way. We stumbled across this kind of maker's market that had all this kind of wool stuff, and it was just everywhere. So I'll try to show you the rest of it without talking too much. And then breakfast. This is on Saturday, back at the show. This was one of the pop-up vendors that they had. Again, gorgeous Fair Isle patterns and colours. This is back, I think, at that Di Gilpin stand. And I didn't take many videos on the second day because I was just looking at all this colour and texture. And loved it, loved the show, loved everything. And this is me back on Princess Street waiting for the tram back to the airport. Glorious sunny day. And I took this picture to show my sister how tired I was by the time I got to the airport. It was just non-stop from start to finish. honestly, it was such a like cup filling but also exhausting weekend. Obviously, you've got to have a little take-off shot whenever you fly anywhere these days. I loved flying and not needing my passport. That was a first for me. It was just a really, really good 2 days. If ever you're thinking of going for a little yarn weekend, like, I don't have that many cities to go by, but Edinburgh just has such good vibes. The show is incredible, such good atmosphere, chatting to strangers, making new friends. It was just a really, really wholesome weekend. So if you've got any questions about any of this, do drop them in the comments. I'm going to make a separate video that will be like a little bonus content where I will share my yarn haul, because everybody loves a yarn haul. So I'm going to head off and record that now. But for the moment, I'll leave you with some clouds. So that was a very whistle-stop tour of the weekend. I'll try to slow down my talking a little bit now because, yeah, I thought I could say a lot more in a lot shorter time. So you might have guessed I had a nice time. Just loved Edinburgh so much. It was a really creative feeling city with loads of independent stores, chill vibes. Everyone was polite, it felt clean, it helped that the sun was shining. We did have a bit of rain while we were there, but yeah, just a really lovely, lovely weekend in every way. So much nice food, so many amazing cafes, ate a lot of cake, did a lot of steps, squished a lot of yarn, had a lot of chats, had a lot of laughs. And yeah, see you next year.